I should have known better than to play hero. That's what everyone tells me now after everything that happened, after the police reports and the restraining orders and the nights I still wake up tasting copper in my mouth. But when I saw him cornering her in that parking lot, her back pressed against her car while her daughter watched from the back seat with those wide, terrified eyes, something ancient and stupid in my chest made the decision before my brain could catch up. I didn't think about consequences. I didn't think about how saving someone could become the first step in destroying them. I just moved. His name was Marcus, and he had the kind of face that probably looked gentle once, before whatever poison he carried inside started leaking through his pores. He was her ex, I learned later, the father of that little girl who pressed her hands against the car window like she could push through the glass and make herself disappear. When I walked over and asked if there was a problem, Marcus looked at me with something that wasn't quite hatred yet, just this cold assessment, like he was filing me away for later. The woman, Elena, she had this expression I recognized because I'd worn it myself once, this mixture of relief and new terror. Because rescue always comes with a price, and she knew it even then. If you've ever stepped into someone else's darkness thinking you could be their light, hit that like button, because what I'm about to tell you is how good intentions can become the sharpest weapon someone uses to cut you open. Marcus left that day. He actually smiled at me, this horrible knowing smile, and said we'd see each other again. Elena thanked me with a voice that shook like wind through broken glass. Her daughter, Lily, was 6 years old and had her mother's dark eyes, but none of her mother's fear yet. Just this watchful intelligence that made my stomach hurt. I gave Elena my number in case Marcus came back. It seemed like the right thing to do. That's how it always starts, right? With something that seems right, that feels like basic human decency. Before you realize you've just handed someone the map to every vulnerable place inside you. She texted me that night to thank me again. Then, the next morning, to tell me Marcus had driven past her apartment 3 times. Then, that afternoon, because he'd sent her 17 messages saying he just wanted to talk. I told her to call the police. She said she had too many times, and they couldn't do anything until he actually did something, as if the threat of violence only counted after bones were already broken. So I started checking on her. Just casual texts at first, making sure she and Lily were okay. Then, I started driving past her apartment on my way home from work, which wasn't actually on my way home, but felt necessary. Then, I was meeting her for coffee while Lily was at school, listening to her talk about the restraining order that Marcus violated so regularly it had become meaningless, about the family court system that kept giving him visitation rights despite everything, about how exhausting it was to be constantly afraid. I fell in love with her in pieces. First, with her strength, the way she held herself together for Lily even when I could see the cracks spreading beneath her skin. Then with her laugh, which she rationed like something precious because she'd learned that joy could be punished. Then with the way she looked at me sometimes, like she couldn't quite believe I was real. Like kindness was so foreign, she had to keep testing it for sharp edges. We never talked about what we were becoming. It happened in the spaces between words, in the way my hand would find the small of her back when we walked, in how she started calling me first when she was scared. In the night, Lily fell asleep on my couch, and Elena looked at me with something that might have been hope or might have been the beginning of the end. I should have seen the warning signs. I should have noticed how Marcus's harassment escalated in direct proportion to how close Elena and I became. How he started showing up places I took her. How he knew details about our conversations that he shouldn't have known. How Elena started seeming nervous around me, not of me, but like my presence itself had become dangerous. But I was too busy playing protector, too caught up in the narrative I'd written where I was the good guy who saved the girl and the kid from the monster. I didn't understand yet that in her story, in the story Marcus was writing with every violation and threat, I wasn't the hero at all. The first time Elena asked me to do something that felt wrong, I told myself it was justified. Marcus had Lily for a supervised visit and was an hour late bringing her back. Elena was destroying herself with panic, calling and calling while his phone went to voicemail. And when I found them at a park 3 towns over, Lily running toward me while Marcus stood there with his arms crossed, Elena begged me to make sure it never happened again. She said I should follow him, document everything, build a case the police couldn't ignore. It made sense. It felt like protection. So I started tracking Marcus's movements, learning his routines, taking photos of him violating the restraining order by parking outside Elena's work. I told myself this was helping. This was keeping them safe. I didn't recognize that I was becoming as obsessed with Marcus as he was with Elena, that the hunter and the hunted sometimes become mirrors of each other. Then Elena asked me to get into his apartment while he was at work, just to look for evidence, she said. Emails, texts, anything that proved he was planning to take Lily and disappear, which was Elena's constant terror. She had keys from when they lived together. She cried when she asked me. She touched my face and said I was the only one who understood, the only one who could help her. and I went. I broke into Marcus's apartment because the woman I loved asked me to, because protecting her had become the entire architecture of my identity, because I'd crossed so many small lines already that this seemed like just one more step down a path I was already on. That's when everything twisted into something I still can't fully untangle. Marcus's apartment was obsessively neat, and on his kitchen table was a file folder with my name on it. Not Elena's name, mine. Inside were photos of me going back weeks. Photos of my apartment, my car, printouts of my social media, my work schedule, even pictures of my sister and her kids with their faces circled in red. There were screenshots of texts between Elena and me, conversations we'd had that were supposed to be private. And there was a legal document, a restraining order that Elena had filed against me 2 days earlier, claiming I was stalking her and Lily, that I'd become fixated and threatening, that she feared for their safety. I stood in that apartment reading this file, and the floor felt like it was opening up beneath me. When I heard the door unlock, I had barely managed to hide in the bedroom before Marcus came home early with Elena right behind him. Through the crack in the door, I watched them. I watched her walk into his arms. I watched him kiss her hair and ask if I'd taken the bait. I watched her nod and say it was perfect, that I'd texted her the exact moment I entered the apartment, that her lawyer said this evidence would be enough. I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me because I know some of you are carrying this weight alone. Have you ever tried to help someone only to discover you were the one being played? Have you ever looked back at your own actions and realized you couldn't tell where protecting someone ended and obsession began? Drop a comment right now. You can just type, "I see it," or "happened to me," or even just a heart emoji if words feel too heavy. Your comment, no matter how small, tells someone else scrolling through that they're not alone in this. That being manipulated doesn't make you stupid or weak. Sometimes just seeing that one other person understands, that one other person has been used like a weapon against themselves. That's what makes the difference between drowning in shame and finding the strength to face the truth. So go ahead, leave your comment. Let's build something real here, a space where the messy, painful truth about manipulation isn't something we hide, but something we share. Because you deserve to be heard and your story matters. I didn't confront them. I didn't rage or demand explanations. I climbed out the bedroom window like a criminal because that's what I'd become, what they'd made me into, and I drove home with my hands shaking so hard I had to pull over twice. The restraining order was real. I verified it online. Elena had painted me as a dangerous stalker who'd fixated on her and her daughter, who'd inserted myself into their lives through manufactured heroism in that parking lot. She claimed I'd broken into her apartment, that I'd threatened Marcus, that she was terrified I'd hurt Lily to punish her for rejecting my advances. Every kind thing I'd done was reframed as manipulation. Every protective instinct was evidence of obsession. And legally, I had no defense because I had broken into Marcus's apartment. I had followed him. I had done everything they claimed I'd done. The intent didn't matter. The fact that Elena had asked me to do these things meant nothing without proof. And she'd been careful to always ask in person, never in texts. When my phone rang 3 hours later, it was Elena. She was crying or performing crying. I couldn't tell anymore. She said Marcus had her phone, that he was tracking her calls, that she was sorry, but she had to file the restraining order or he'd take Lily. She said it was all fake, that she'd explain everything if I met her at the park near her apartment. Just her. No, Marcus, please. She needed me to understand. And God help me, I almost went. That's the thing about being manipulated by someone you love. Even when you know it's a trap, even when every rational cell in your brain is screaming run, there's this pathetic, desperate part of you that wants to believe. That needs the person you love to not be who they revealed themselves to be. That would rather walk into another lie than accept the truth. I didn't go to the park. Instead, I went to a lawyer. But the damage was comprehensive and surgical. Elena and Marcus, I learned, had been running this con for 2 years. I wasn't the first. There were 3 men before me, each one played exactly the same way. Manufactured crisis in a parking lot or grocery store or coffee shop, the grateful, vulnerable single mother, the escalating harassment from the evil ex, the good Samaritan drawn deeper and deeper until he committed prosecutable acts, then the restraining order and the settlement. They'd made $60,000 off the last guy before me. He'd lost his job over the stalking charges. The one before that had spent 3 months in jail. If these stories speak to something in you, if you've lived through the kind of manipulation that makes you question your own judgment, this channel is your space. Subscribe and become part of a community that understands that not all abuse is obvious, that sometimes the people who cry for help are the ones doing the hurting. Here, we explore the psychology of manipulation, the ways people weaponize kindness, and the strength it takes to rebuild trust in yourself after someone's made you doubt your own reality. No judgment, no simple answers, just raw, honest stories about the complicated, messy reality of human deception. Hit that subscribe button if you're ready to dive deeper into these dark truths. This is a place where your complicated feelings about being used are not only valid, but understood. The legal battle took 8 months. 8 months of depositions and court appearances and watching Elena perform victimhood so convincingly, I sometimes doubted my own memories. Marcus would sit beside her in court playing the reformed ex, the concerned father, the man trying to protect his family from a dangerous stranger. They had a system, a whole constructed narrative with manufactured evidence, and my actual innocence meant nothing against the story they could prove. What saved me was the man before me, the one who'd gone to jail. He'd gotten out and started his own investigation. He found the pattern. He found the other victim. We built a case together. 6 men who'd all been targeted the same way, and finally, the truth came out. But by then, I'd lost my job due to the restraining order showing up on background checks. I'd lost friends who believed Elena's version over mine. I'd lost months of sleep and peace and any faith in my ability to read people. Marcus and Elena were arrested. They're awaiting trial now. But that doesn't undo what they did, doesn't erase the violation of having my kindness turned into a weapon and used against me. The thing that haunts me most isn't even what they did. It's the girl, Lily, because she was real. Her fear in that car was real. And I've spent every day since wondering what kind of monster uses their own child as bait. What it does to a kid to watch her mother perform love and terror for strangers, to be part of a con that destroys people. I think about Lily growing up in that house. Learning that manipulation is love, that using people is survival, that kindness is just another thing to exploit. Sometimes I dream about that first day in the parking lot, and in the dream I just keep walking. I don't stop. I don't play hero. I let Marcus and Elena act out their scene for someone else, and I go home to my small, safe, lonely life where I never get hurt like this. But even in the dream, I can't do it, because that would mean being the kind of person who sees a child in distress and does nothing. It would mean letting fear make me cruel. And maybe that's the real trap, right? That they knew people like me exist, people who can't walk away from someone in pain, and they built their entire con around that goodness. They turned our best instincts into our greatest vulnerability. I don't trust easily now. Can't, really. When someone needs help, I feel this immediate suspicion instead of compassion, this voice that asks what angle they're working, what they want from me. I hate that they did this to me. I hate that I look at every kindness through a lens of potential manipulation. I hate that I've become careful with a heart that used to be open. But I'm learning, slowly, that protecting yourself isn't the same as becoming what hurt you. That discernment isn't cynicism. That I can acknowledge the damage while refusing to let it define me. Some days are harder than others. Some days I see a woman with a scared kid and my whole body goes rigid with the memory. But most days now, I can separate them from everyone else. Most days I can remember that being targeted doesn't mean I was stupid. It means I cared, and someone saw that caring as something to steal. The scar tissue is thick where trust used to be, but scars mean survival. They mean I'm still here. If you've made it this far in the story, if any of this resonated with the ways you've been used or manipulated, hit that notification bell because there are more stories coming, more truths about the dark side of human connection, more explorations of how we survive when trust becomes dangerous. You're not alone in what you've been through. None of us are. And maybe that's the only real weapon we have against the predators who count on our silence. We speak. We share. We refuse to be ashamed of having been human enough to care. That's not weakness. That was never weakness. That's the thing they couldn't take.